Okay. All right, I think we're ready. Shalom, everyone. I'm Brother Doug, as always. Let me just get rid of that YouTube off of the background there. There we go. All right, everyone. We're live. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. All of our brothers and sisters out there. Thank you for joining us today. We are going to be doing our regular Numbers 29 to 32 study as we're going through the book of Numbers. So we usually do our Sabbath day, book by book, chapter by chapter readings. And so we're getting closer and closer to the end of Numbers here. So I'll start us off with Numbers 29, just because I have it opened up anyway. So I will be reading from the Net New English translation of the Septuagint, but I'll also have my purple imitation leather ISR here, just in case I want to compare. So let me just see here. So it says here, and in the 7th month, on the 1st of the month, there shall be a designated set-apart day for you. Got a little footnote here, I think feast day, i.e. feast day. You shall not do any work of service. It shall be to you for a day of giving signals. Don't like that translation there. It should say blowing trumpet, giving signals. You shall do whole burnt offerings as an odor of fragrance to Yahuwah, 1 bull, calf of the cattle, 1 ram, 7 lambs, a year old without blemish. Their sacrifice, fine flour mixed with oil, 3 tenths for 1 bull calf, and 2 tenths for 1 ram, a tenth for each lamb for the 7 lambs, and 1 male goat from the goats for a sin offering to make atonement for you, apart from the whole burnt offerings of the new moon and their sacrifices and their libations, and a continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices and their libations according to their interpretation. That's a weird word to use there. As odor of fragrance to Yahuwah. And on the 10th of this month, there shall be a designated, set apart one for you. So it's talking about a feast. You shall afflict your souls. You shall not do any work. You shall bring forward whole burnt offerings as an odor of fragrance, offerings to Yahuwah, 1 bull calf from the cattle, 1 ram, 7 lambs of a year old. They shall be for you without blemish. Their sacrifice, fine flour mixed with oil, 3 tenths for 1 bull calf, and 2 tenths for the 1 ram, a tenth for the lamb, for the 7 lambs, and 1 male goat from the goats for a sin offering to make atonement for you. But the one for sin, for atonement, and the continual whole burnt offering, its sacrifice and its libation, shall be according to the interpretation as an odor of fragrance, an offering to Yahuwah. And on the 15th day of the 7th month, there shall be a designated set apart one for you. You shall not do any work of service. You shall celebrate it as a feast to Yahuwah's 7 days. Now notice how the 15th of Abib is designated here as a separate feast from the 14th of Abib. Okay. And you shall bring forward whole burnt offerings, an offering as an odor fragrance to Yahuwah on the 1st day, 13 calves from the cattle, 2 rams, 14 lambs a year old. They shall be without blemish. The sacrifices of fine flour mixed with oil, 3 tenths for 1 bull, for the 13 calves, and 2 tenths for the ram, for the 2 rams, a tenth for the 1 lamb, for the 14 lambs, and 1 male goat from the goats for sin, apart from the continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices and their libations. On the 2nd day, 12 calves, 2 rams, 14 lambs, a year old without blemish, their sacrifice and their libation shall be for the bull calves and for the rams and for the lambs according to their number, according to their interpretation, and one male goat for the goats for a sin, apart from the continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices, their libations. On the third day, 11 calves, 2 rams, 14 lambs, a year old without blemish. Their sacrifice and their libation shall be for the bull calves and for the rams and for the lambs. I find it weird that it says bull calves. Isn't that kind of redundant? Like, wouldn't a bull be a calf? Like, unless it's a baby bull.
The calf is a baby.
Yeah, maybe it's supposed to say a young bull or a baby bull. I don't know. That wording is just weird. Okay. Yeah. So, and for the rams, for the lambs, according to their number, we're almost at verse 22 here. According to their interpretation, I don't like how the net uses interpretation. In that context, doesn't make sense. And one male goat from the goats for sin, apart from the continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices, their libations. On the fourth day, 10 calves, 2 rams, 14 lambs a year old without blemish. Their sacrifices, their libations shall be for the bull calves and for the rams and for the lambs, according to their number, according to their interpretation. Verse 25, and one male goat from the goats for sin offering, apart from the continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices and their libations. On the fifth day, 9 calves, 2 rams, 14 lambs a year old without blemish. Their sacrifice, their libation shall be for the bull calves and for the rams and for the lambs, according to their number, according to their interpretation, and one male goat from the goats for sin, apart from the continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices, their libations. On the 6th day, 8 calves, 2 rams, 14 lambs a year old without blemish. Their sacrifice and their libation shall be for the bull calves, or the baby bulls, and for the rams and for the lambs according to their number, according to their interpretation. And one male goat from the goats for sin, apart from the continual whole burnt offering, their sacrifices and their libation. So, by the way, libation just means like a drink offering.
Yeah.
So your translation might just say drink offering. On the 7th day, 7 calves, 2 rams, 14 lambs a year old without blemish. Their sacrifice and their libation shall be for the bull calves and for the rams and for the lambs according to their number, according to their interpretation, and one male goat from the goats for sin, apart from the continual whole burnt offering. Their sacrifices and their libations, and on the 8th day there shall be for you a finale, and you shall not do any work on the service of it. You shall bring forward whole burnt offerings as an odor of fragrance, an offering to Yahuwah. 1 baby bull, 1 ram, 7 lambs a year old without blemish. Their sacrifices and their drink offerings shall be for the bull, from the baby bull, and for the ram, and for the lambs, according to their number, according to their interpretation. And 1 male goat from the goats for sin, apart from the continual burnt, their sacrifices and their drink offerings. These you shall do for Yahuwah at your feasts, apart from your vows and your freewill gifts and your whole burnt offerings and your sacrifices and your drink offerings and your gifts for salvation. So there was salvation offerings, which is commonly translated in the Masoretic as peace offerings. So that was then in chapter 29. Interestingly, one of the last offerings they mention is to pay your vows. So in the Levitical priesthood context, you usually paid your vows, not just with the regular promise, but usually you had to give a vow offering along with that promise. So, yeah. Anything you wanted, anything that struck out to you, Mom?
Yeah, I'm just wondering, just from having a mother who was a farmer's daughter, and I learned a lot about the farm. I don't know if there's any such thing as a calf bull. A bull.
A baby bull.
A baby bull. I never heard of that.
So like a baby male
It's
cow.
like contradictory terms because a bull is a full-grown.
Well, yeah, what they're saying is if it's a baby, then it would be a male baby calf. Like it would be like
maybe it's not a huge point. I don't know. I just never heard of that before.
Yeah, because we use bull as a term for a grown male, you know,
horns
cow. So that would be that as a baby, whatever it would look like as a baby.
Okay.
So that's what it's talking about. And preferably, according to Torah, it would have to be with its mother 8 days. It would have to be weaned first before you could offer it. That's why it talks about if you find a baby with the young with its mother, let it be under its mother 8 days and take it and all that.
What version were you reading?
This Net New English translation of the Septuagint is supposed to be a modern English version, but they're using like a mixture of modern English with other British English, so it's confusing the heck out of me in this chapter.
Well,
I don't know why they do that.
It's not a big point, but I just noticed that mine said aroma, yours said odor.
Yeah.
So odor is kind of a more negative.
Our society has made it negative.
Okay.
But if you look in the dictionary, Mom, without any stigmas, it means the same thing.
Okay. All right.
There's bad odors and good. There's bad odors and good odors. So that's just our stigma in society.
Yes. Okay, got it.
You know,
but Doug, you know that nowadays the farmers, they literally separate the calves from the mothers after birth, which is contrary to what Yahuwah is saying for them to do. But now that's what they're doing now. As the minute the cow is born, they separate it from the mom.
And I think that's why veal, I'm thinking about veal right now, probably is not biblical because like you were saying, they would separate it from the mother right away. So if you're eating veal, you're most likely eating a baby calf that wasn't even weaned, didn't even have time to be weaned, wasn't even under its mother 8 days. Most likely today, they don't let it be under its mother long enough. So yeah, that's one of the reasons I haven't ate veal in a very long time.
That is very true. That is very true, Marissa.
So veal doesn't come from like a grown cow. I thought veal came. I was under the impression that it came from a grown cow.
No, it's a baby calf.
It's a baby calf. Yeah, it's a calf.
It's so tender.
And it's like newborn usually. Yeah. Like it doesn't even have time for its legs to develop or anything. I don't know.
Well, in factory farming, they yank it as soon as the calf is born. They pull it right out, and just go to PETA about that one. Mm-hmm.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah, it's horrifying. It truly is horrifying. Yeah.
So what I found interesting too was like this is kind of like Leviticus 23 here in this chapter, where this is giving like a hot spot for all the burnt offerings during the feasts here. So mainly this chapter is giving like a broad overview. Sure.
Yeah.
And I believe the next chapter continues on, if I'm not mistaken, or it might go into another topic. I'm thinking of the previous chapter, 28. 28 and 29 give you a whole burnt offering, other offerings for the feast days of Leviticus 23. So Leviticus 23 just gives you the overview of what the feast days are, but Numbers 28 to 29 give you the sacrifices for those same feasts. So we just went through in this chapter Day of Atonement, what they're supposed to do on Day of Atonement, what they're supposed to do on the 15th of Abib through the 21st of Abib, a lot of that type of stuff. So I find it interesting that it seems like the number of animals is decreasing each day for the offerings of the week of unleavened bread. The only thing that doesn't seem to decrease, if I'm not mistaken, is the number of lambs. It seems like every day is 14 lambs being offered, which is interesting when you think about it, because Yahusha's our Passover lamb. He would have died on the 14th of Abib. There's 14 lambs they're supposed to offer every day for the whole week of unleavened bread. I find that interesting. So I don't know if there's any connection with that, but I just find that interesting. Also, the goats being sin sacrifices, pointing out that for your sin sacrifice for that week, every day you have to offer one goat for sin. So I find that interesting because, you know, in ancient cultures, goats are usually associated with evil, you know, like, you know, the Baphomet, this and that. A lot of the occult, they worship goats. So it seems like Yahuwah was taking gods of the nations and like symbolizing them with the animals and having them offered and sacrificed. I remember me and Brother Yahusha looked into it one time where if you look at all the gods of Egypt and all that, and like all the animals they worshipped, like usually those were the animals being offered to Yahuwah. It was kind of like Yahuwah, you know, making a display of them, like how it talks about on the cross or on the stake, he made a show of the principalities. So it's almost like the same thing, like Yahuwah's like purposely using the animals that these nations would have worshipped or idolized, and he's using those exact animals as sacrifices to himself. So I don't know. That's just a connection I caught a while ago. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
I didn't notice that the animals were decreasing. That's interesting. I just went and looked at it, and I don't. I was busy looking at it when you were talking, so I'm not sure if you mentioned it or not. The rams. It only seems that the calves are decreasing, not the.
Oh, okay.
Not the rams either. It's constantly 2 rams, and constantly 14 lambs. I'm sorry. But then when you get to the 8th day, the 14 lambs is cut in half to 7. I'm sorry. Where's the 8th day? So the ram is cut in half. Like it's now no longer 2 rams. It's constantly 2 rams, but it's only the calves that are decreasing, and constantly 14 lambs. But then when you get to the 8th day, it's only 1 ram, which is half of the other days, and only 7 lambs, which is half of the other days.
That's interesting.
There's definitely something deeper there. That's really unique. That's weird.
I just find it interesting. The lamb's never decreasing. I just find that interesting. And it's always 14. That's just interesting to me. So that's something I never noticed too much before. Also, I want people getting confused. The burnt offering, the whole burnt offering, are 2 separate offerings in the law. So a regular burnt offering, the priest could eat. Like they could eat of it. They would have a portion, like whether it's the shoulder or whatever, they would physically be able to eat it. Whole burnt offering, or your translation might say ascended offering, that can't be eaten at all. That has to be wholly consumed by the fire. It's almost like it's fully given to Yahuwah, right? Because Yahuwah is what? All-consuming fire. It's going right up to Yahuwah, right? So I kind of wonder if Jeremiah was a priest. Because he gave ascended offering to Yahuwah, technically. When he was battling the prophets of Baal, and I believe it's 1st or 2nd Kings, he basically builds the wood and everything, and then kills the animal, cuts it in pieces, and Yahuwah's fire from heaven consumes it. So I wonder if he was giving Yahuwah like a ascended offering or something like that. So I just find it interesting because I know there's tradition. I forget if it's Christian tradition or Jewish tradition that puts him as a priest. I forget which one. But anyway, go ahead, Brother Yahusha. I don't know if that's an old hand, new hand.
Old hand.
Let's see here. So I don't think there's anything else to really bring up in this chapter. It's pretty much self-explanatory with all the feast day offerings and stuff like that. Now, Mom, was there anything, nothing was mentioned for Passover in this chapter, right? Any offerings?
I don't think so.
Yeah, so it's just, yeah.
Passover was in chapter 28.
28, okay. So the 14th was in 28, okay. All right. So I definitely want to look back to that because it seems like eventually Yahuwah did give them offerings for the night of Passover, which could coincide with Deuteronomy 16 in that context. So yeah, I definitely want to look back into that. But Mom, would you like to continue?
Yeah, I think I'm going to read from the Lexham.
Okay.
Or just comparing the two. Okay. And Moshe spoke to the sons of Yashrael according to everything that Yahuwah had commanded Moshe. And Moshe spoke to the rulers of the tribes of Yashrael, saying, this is the matter concerning which Yahuwah has given a charge. A person who vows a vow to Yahuwah or swears an oath to an obligation or binds himself concerning his soul, he will not profane his commitment. All that may come out from his mouth, he will do. And if a woman vows a vow to Yahuwah or binds herself to an obligation while in the house of her father, while in her youth, and her father hears of her vows and her obligations that she has bound herself to with respect to her soul, and her father keeps silent about it, then all her vows will be in effect, and all the obligations about which she has bound herself with respect to her soul remain in effect for her. But if her father disclaims on whatever day he hears of all her vows and the obligations about which she has been bound with respect to her soul, they will not remain in effect, and Yahuwah will excuse her because her father disclaimed. And if she becomes a man's wife, and her vows are still on her according to the assertions of her own lips, concerning which she has bound herself with respect to her own soul, and if her husband hears and keeps silent with respect to it on whichever day he hears, then accordingly, with all her vows will be in effect, and her obligations that she has bound herself to with respect to her soul will stand. But if her husband firmly refuses on the day he hears, all her vows and her obligations that she has bound herself to with respect to her soul will not stand, because her husband disclaimed her vows from her, and so Yahuwah will excuse her. And the vow of a widow and of a divorced woman, whatever she vows with respect to her soul, will remain in effect for her. And if while in the house of her husband, her vow or obligation was made with respect to her soul by means of an oath, and if her husband hears and keeps silent with respect to it and does not refuse her, then all her vows will stand, and all her obligations that she has bound herself to with respect to her soul will be in effect with respect to her. But if her husband voids them on the day that he hears everything that came out of her lips with respect to her vows and with respect to the obligations, the ones with respect to her soul will not remain in effect for her. Her husband canceled them, and Yahuwah will clear her. Every vow and every binding oath to afflict her soul, her husband will make stand for her, and her husband will make void. But if keeping silent, he in fact continues to be silent toward her day by day, then he will make all her vows stand with respect to her, and he will make the obligations that are on her stand with respect to her, because he kept silent toward her on the day that he learned. But if he voids them after the day on which he heard, then he will accept his own sin. These are the righteous ordinances that Yahuwah commanded Moshe between a husband and his wife, and between a father and a daughter, while youth in the house of her father.
Interesting. Numbers 30 here. Just want to see. So this is important. This is talking about vows and oaths. Now, what's really scary is when for us men, we don't have this protection.
Yeah.
So
you're the head.
We're the head, so we got to hold our. If you know you can't pay something, you might as well refrain it and hold your peace, because at least according to Torah, you're not required to make vows. So that's always been my advice to fellow brothers out there. If you don't have to vow something, don't do it. And we see that as an example. We see that as an example, really. I'm trying to remember that instance. I think it's in the book of Judges. What was the guy's name? He promised his own daughter as an offering. He failed to be specific, and he just said to Yahuwah, the next person that walks through the threshold, I'm going to give as an offering.
Yeah.
Not a good idea.
No, that was a wide open.
I'm wondering if he thought in his mind, oh, well, someone's going to bring in, an animal or whatever, and he just screwed up.
Yeah, that's the truth, boy.
But yeah. Yeah. Pretty self-explanatory with chapter 30. I don't think there's any way to really expound upon it. It's pretty self-explanatory what you read.
His name was Jephthah.
Yeah. So with women, they have two options now. This is why a woman without a head, my advice to all of our sisters out there, if you don't have a head, do not make any oaths. Do not make any vows. Because clearly in Numbers 30, it's saying the only way that a vow of hers, an ill-advised vow that a woman makes, can be canceled is from a father, her own father, or her husband. So she's not living with her father or her husband. You might not want to make any vows. Like all the widows out there, you might just want to withhold any vows. That would be my advice. Just in case, because we are human, we're going to mess up. We're going to make stupid vows at some point in time. So, for women out there, that's my advice. That's just my opinion. That's my advice. But you see here that if a woman has a husband, the husband can disallow her vow or allow her vow to stand, and so can her father if she's living with her father. What it says to me also is if a woman's not married, she should really be under the house of her father.
Yes, that's right.
It's kind of hinting to me that she shouldn't even be living on her own. But anyway, but I know there's situations out there where that's not possible, like your parents could have been deceased or whatever. But it seems like that's usually the two options I see in Scripture. Throughout the whole message of Scripture and through Yahuwah's Torah, we see that usually women are either married or still under her father's, headship, usually. So what's interesting here, it also includes a woman that's put away. Oh, wow. So a woman that's put away, but that's not divorced, she's kind of in danger too. Wow. Because since she's put away, she's not under the headship of her husband temporarily, and there's no one to disallow her vow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. So that's pretty interesting. Now, what's also interesting in the last verse here, it says that if he tries to disallow her vow or tries to cancel it after the day it's been given, after the day he already heard her, swear an oath or vow it, he's actually in sin. The husband would be in sin because he delayed. That's interesting. That's interesting. I think we're at chapter 31. We should get a new reader. I'm just going to check to see if anyone has anything else to say here, but if not, we could kind of move on to a new reader here. Let's see. Let's see who we got here. I think we got Sister Marissa. Brother Yahusha hasn't read it yet. Sister Josie hasn't read it yet. You know what? Now, don't feel any pressure, but Sister Ronnie, would you like to read chapter 31 of Numbers?
Yes, of course.
All right, cool. Let me just try to get this up here.
I'm reading off my Bible, which is a King James, by the way.
Okay. All right.
Can I start?
Sure.
And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Avenge the children of Ishmael, of the Midianites. Afterward shalt thou be gathered unto thy people. And Moshe spoke unto the people, saying, Arm some of yourselves unto the war, and let them go against the Midianites, and avenge Yahuwah of Midian. Of every tribe 8,000 throughout all the tribes of Israel shall you send to the war. So there were delivered out of the thousands of Israel 8,000 of every tribe, 12,000 armed for war. And Moshe sent them to the war, 1,000 of every tribe, them and Phinehas, the son of Eleazar, the priest, to the war with the holy instruments and the trumpets to blow in his hand. And they warred against the Midianites as Yahuwah commanded Moshe, and they slew all the males. And they slew the kings of Midian, beside the rest of them that were slain, namely Abel, and Rechem, and Zur, and Hur, and Reba, 5 kings of Midian. Balaam, also the son of Beor, they slew with the sword. And the children of Israel took all the women of Midian captives, and their little ones, and took the spoil of all their cattle, and all their flocks, and all their goods. And they burnt all their cities wherein they dwelt, and all their goodly castles with fire. And they took all of the spoil, and all the prey, both of men and of beasts. And they brought the captives and the prey and the spoil unto Moshe and Eleazar the priest, and unto the congregation of the children of Yasharel, unto the camp at the plains of Moab, which are by Jordan near Jericho. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest, and all the princes of the congregation, went forth to meet them without the camp. And Moshe was wroth with the officers of the host, with the captains over thousands and captains over hundreds, which came from the battle. And Moshe said unto them, Have ye saved all the women alive? Behold, these caused the children of Yasharel through the counsel of Balaam to commit trespass against Yahuwah in the matter of Peor. And there was a plague among the congregation of Yahuwah. Now therefore, kill every male among the little ones, and kill every woman that hath known man by laying with him. But all the women, children, they have not known a man by lying with him, keep alive for yourselves. And do you abide without the camp 7 days. Whosoever hath killed any person, and whosoever hath touched any slain, purify both yourselves and your captives on the 3rd day and on the 7th day. And purify all your raiment, and all that is made of skins, and all work of goats' hair, and all things made of wood. And Eleazar the priest said unto the men of war, which went into Balo, This is the ordinance of the law, which Yahuwah commanded Moshe. Only the gold and the silver the brass, the iron, the tin, and the lead, everything that may abide the fire, ye shall make it go through the fire, and it shall be clean. Nevertheless, it shall be purified with the water of separation, and all that abideth not the fire, ye shall make go through the water. And you shall wash your clothes on the seventh day, and ye shall be clean, and afterward ye shall come into the camp. And Yahuwah spoke unto Moshe, saying, Take the sum of the prey that was taken, both of man and of beast, thou and Eleazar the priest, and the chief fathers of the congregation, and divide the prey into 2 parts, between them that took the war upon them, who went out to battle, and between all the congregation. And levy a tribute unto Yahuwah of the men of war, which went out to battle, 1 soul of 500, both of the persons and of the beeves, and of the asses and of the sheep. Take it off their half, and give it unto Eleazar the priest, for a heave offering of Yahuwah. And of the children of Yasharel, half thou shalt take, 1 portion of 50, of the persons of the beeves, of the asses, and of the flocks, of all manner of beasts, and give them unto the Levites, which keep the charge of the tabernacle of Yahuwah. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest did as Yahuwah commanded Moshe. And the booty, being the rest of the prey which the men of war had caught, was 600,000 and 70,000 and 5,000 sheep, and 62,000 beeves, and 61,000 asses, and 32,000 persons in all of women that had not known man by lying with him. And the half which was the portion of them that went out to war was in number 300,000 and 30,500 sheep. And Yahuwah's tribute of the sheep was 615. And the beeves were 36,000, of which Yahuwah tribute was 12. And the asses were 30,500, of which Yahuwah's tribute was 61. And the persons were 16,000, of which Yahuwah's tribute was 32 persons. And Moshe gave the tribute, which was Yahuwah's, heave offering unto Eleazar the priest, as Yahuwah commanded Moshe. And of the children of Yasharel's half, which Moses divided from the men that warred, now the half that pertained unto the congregation was 300,000 and 30,000 and 7,500 sheep, and 36,000 beeves, and 30,000 asses, and 516,000 persons. Even of the children of Yasharel's half, Moshe took 1 portion of 50, both of man and of beast, and gave them unto the Levites, which kept the charge of the tabernacle of Yahusha, as Yahusha commanded Moshe. And the officers which were over thousands of the host, the captains of thousands and captains of hundreds, came near unto Moshe. And they said unto Moshe, Thy servants have taken the sum of the men of war, which are under our charge, and there lacketh not 1 man of us. We have therefore brought an oblation for Yahuwah, what every man hath gotten of jewels of gold, chains and bracelets, rings, earrings, and tablets, to make an atonement for our souls before Yahuwah. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest took the gold of them, even all wrought jewels, and all the gold of the offering that they offered up to Yahuwah, of the captains of thousands and of the captains of hundreds, was 16,750 shekels. For the men of war had taken spoil, every man for himself. And Moshe and Eleazar the priest took the gold of the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and brought it into the tabernacle of the congregation, for a memorial for the children of Yasharel before Yahuwah.
Okay. Here. Let's see here. All right. Oh, great job, Sister Ronnie.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot in this chapter. Find it interesting that the women that did not know a man, they were able to take them for wives. So very interesting. Yeah, pretty much self-explanatory though. You have the all these offerings. I found it interesting. Verse 29 said first fruits in the Septuagint. I just found that interesting. So first fruit, it's a specific type of offering, it seems like. But yeah, so I'm gonna let Brother Yahusha go. I think he has his hand up. Go ahead, bro.
So to that point, I'm not necessarily sure that means they kept them as wives. It just says that they keep, as for all the captivity of women who have not known a man intimately, keep them alive. Possible that they use them for wives, but I would like to know how they, if you have like all these men and all these women, they have there and they're told to kill the men, and they kill the women who have known men intimately. Like, how did they even judge that? Like, how?
Yeah, I guess they would have had to know whether they've. I mean, there's no way to know whether they. I would assume there was an age that certain women were at that they didn't lose their virginity yet. I think in ancient times they would have had a certain age for women that possibly they also inspected the women to see if their hymen was broken. I don't know. There had to be some type of way. I mean, there had to be, because we see in Torah, there, even when a dad is defending his daughter, they have tokens of virginity, they have this, they have that. So I'm pretty sure they must have had some concept of figuring out whether a woman lost her virginity or not. And also, if they could easily probably figure out which women slept with Israelite men or not, so they could probably figure that out too. They could probably figure out, okay, because if I'm not mistaken, they killed all of them, right? That were part of the where they were supposed to anyway. They were commanded to kill the women that seduced the Israelite men in the Baal Peor incident. So yeah, there would have had to be some way. I'm assuming some way to figure that out. Probably easier back then than now. A lot less promiscuousness back then. Let me see here. There's something I wanted to look up because I noticed in verse 16 it says the Septuagint said that they despised the word of Yahuwah. And I wanted to look something up here.
But Brother Doug, the way that they would find out if a woman had been with a man, I know that was when she got married and they consummated the marriage. And if she was a virgin, there would be blood on the sheets.
Right.
So how would they be able to determine this unless they were having intercourse with these girls?
Yeah, yeah, that's true. I'm thinking though that they probably. I'm assuming though, if they didn't know a man, then well, the blood actually would have. If they knew a man ahead of time, I would assume that their blood would have went out before then. If they knew a man beforehand, that there would have been some proof of that if they're going through their tents and all that. I'm pretty sure there was some way they had to kind of inquire about it. Also, they could have asked the women, and which is, kind of iffy too, because the woman could lie, but
inspecting the hymen, that's probably what they did. They probably sent women into in there to inspect the hymen.
Yeah, the hymen means that also you can actually, it doesn't even, you really don't need to even find blood. Like when a woman's hymen's been broken, I mean, that alone is physical evidence. The blood obviously would be the best case scenario. You could find maybe blood on her bed sheets. It's already been broken, so there would be already blood on her bed sheets. But either way, if you're inspecting the woman's hymen, regardless of finding blood or not, if her hymen's broken, it would be visible. If women are inspecting the other women's hymen, they would know what, obviously what it would look like. So that, I think, what Brother Yahusha brought up, that's probably the most realistic way they checked. The word of mouth thing could be possible too, but the problem is with word of mouth, they could lie. And Midianite women were already trying to seduce them. So that's the problem too, is that they couldn't just trust their word of mouth, because they would, they wouldn't be opposed to lying to save their own life. But Brother Yahusha brought up a good point that there's no way to know for sure if they were saving them for lives or not. I do know, though, there's an allowance in the Torah for that if they were. It would have been out of precedent for them to do that, because once you get to Deuteronomy, I think it's 23:24, Yahuwah actually gives the commandment that if you find a prisoner of war, that you let the woman mourn her parents for about a month. You let her live with you, but you don't go in her. You let her mourn her parents for about 30 days, I think it is. And then she becomes your wife, and you go into her and know her. So there is a precedent for that. That's the reason I think I was just automatically assuming that's why they're saving them. I mean, it could be just they were saving them to save them alive and for them to be grafted in. That's always possible. But that's the only reason I was thinking that, is because I know later on in Deuteronomy 23 or 24, he gives the allowance of saving women that are captives, and as giving them allowance to take them as a wife, and what you're supposed to do if you want to take one as your wife. But it's very possible too that they were just saving them alive. So I just wanted to check verse 16 here, because the Septuagint seems to indicate that with Baal Peor, Yahuwah is accusing them of actually hating the word of Yahuwah. So I find that interesting.
Doug, doesn't the scripture say that when the children of Israel went into these camps to slaughter like the giants or whatever, that they would take the children and the women captive, and some of them they would take as wives? So
no, they didn't do that. If they did, they were rebelling if they did that, because Yahuwah said to the tribes that are not of those lineages, you can do that. Yahuwah makes a distinction. He says you don't do that of the nations that are in that land. So if they did do that, which I haven't seen in scripture them doing that, if they did do that, they would be sinning against Yahuwah to do that. Yahuwah actually, when he's talking about the women you're allowed to take as captives of war, he's not talking about the Canaanite lineage. He's not talking about them. He's talking about nations that are far away, if I'm not mistaken. He makes a distinction in the book of Deuteronomy. He says, nations that are in the land I'm giving you, you don't do that. You kill the women and children. You kill everyone. With the nations that are far away, you're allowed to take women from them. So there's like a distinction. Yahuwah didn't want them doing that for multiple reasons. You have a genetic problem if you do that. But there's multiple reasons why Yahuwah didn't want them doing that, because the answer I usually get is, well, they were pagans. And I'm like, okay, so the Midianites were pagans too. So At this point, they're worshipers of, I forget which god they would have been worshiping, but at this point in time, they're controlled by the Moabites. So, I mean, it's not really much of a difference as far as paganism goes. They would have been pagans as well. But the difference to me clearly is with the genetics. You don't have Canaanite lineage with the Midianite women, and that's why probably Yahuwah gives that allowance with nations like that and not these nations that came from the giants, which obviously you would have women having a genetic issue. Even if the woman wasn't a quote unquote giant, she would still have that recessive gene that could possibly be passed down. You know what I'm saying? Genetically speaking, it would not.
There's a few exceptions, though. Yeah. Rahab and her entire family. Rahab married into Yahusha's lineage, and then before you have that command, you have a Canaanite being grafted into Yahusha's lineage. The Canaanite that married one of Yehuda's son, and then eventually slept with Yehuda. Those are a few exceptions that I see. A Canaanite, a whole family from Jericho.
Yeah. And to be fair with Judah, the person Judah, Yahuwah did not tell him he could do that. He was being wicked of himself doing that. Yahuwah did not say, go and marry a Canaanite woman. He did not tell him to do that. His parents would have not wanted him to do that either. That's why Jacob's parents, you can look through the whole book of Genesis, the whole lineage of Shem is being told, don't do that. Don't marry Hittite women. Don't marry Canaanite women. So Judah, that's a perfect example to bring up. It would not be righteous. What Judah did was not righteous. I want to make that clear. He did that of his own will. He did not do that being told by Yahuwah to do that.
Yeah.
And I personally believe
Esau did it. Esau did it.
Yeah, Esau did it too, which is not a good example either. Esau being wicked did it. So obviously that's the two times you see it happening is not good examples, because King Solomon's a third example, and he was being wicked when he was doing it too. He started turning away from Yahuwah when he had a Hittite wife. So, when you look at it in scripture, there's definitely a distinction between Yahuwah's will on certain nations that they could take women from and other nations that they're actually commanded not to at all. And maybe Rahab could be like she's the one, exception to the rule. But the majority of the time, Yahuwah told them, they're like, don't do that. I don't want you to.
Bathsheba. Didn't David... Bathsheba wasn't she of
Bathsheba? Her husband, not her. Her husband was a Hittite, not her. Her husband, Ephron the Hittite was the Hittite. She was actually a Benjamite. She was actually, and there's no even people debate whether Ephron was a Hittite by geographical terms or whether he was an ethnic Hittite. Like, some people debate whether he was really even ethnically a Hittite, because you could be living in a Jebusite or Hittite town and be called a Jebusite or a Hittite. So there's even rabbis that don't agree with one another about whether he was really a genetic Hittite. Her husband that she cheated on with Daoud. So Ephron is called a Hittite, but they're not too sure whether that's talking about his ethnicity or his geographical where he lived. Because
she was unequally yoked with him because she's a Benjamite and she married a Hittite.
Well, he was an Israelite. Spiritually speaking, he was an Israelite. We know for a fact he was an Israelite because he was part of David's army. He was part of Daoud's army. Daoud was in the wrong. Ephron was a very loyal guy in the army, in the Israel's army. And so my opinion, yes. Okay. Yeah. We're talking about whether he would have been a genetic Hittite or geographically called a Hittite. which I more side, in my opinion, with it's a geographical term being used. That he was like, like if, say, you lived in, there was a term they used for Jerusalem before it was called Jerusalem. Like Jerusalem was a Jebusite town before they came into the land. So technically, if you're living in a Jebusite town, you would be called a Jebusite. Not that you're a giant or anything, but that you can be called something just because of where you live geographically. For example, if I lived in the town of Judah during Yahushua's time, regardless of my ethnicity, I'm a Judean, not ethnically, but geographically. So there are times in scripture where you have even Gentile lineages living somewhere called someone, using a term for someone as a geographical term. So not an ethnic term, not as ethnic. Like, so technically we don't know for sure whether Ephron was a genetic Hittite or not. The text doesn't really tell us. It just says it says he was called the Hittite. So if he's in Israel's army, to me that kind of, I think and it seems like he was of Israel, like he was a grafted in Israelite. So he could have easily just been an inhabitant of a Hittite city, and that's why he was called Ephron the Hittite. But there's no real link either way or not what ethnicity he was in scripture, because it just calls him the Hittite, and that's it, really. So it doesn't tell you whether it's geographical or genetic, is what I'm trying to say. So, like, there's differences in opinion. Even when you look up the rabbinical traditions about Ephron, they really don't, there's not a general consensus what ethnicity he was. I personally believe he was an Israelite. I don't think there was any unequally yokedness there. If anything, it seems like him and Bathsheba were both Israelites. They got married, and Daud, had a moment of weakness, and he committed adultery. So, but that's kind of my opinion on it, because I can't really form a conclusion what ethnicity he is, since they don't tell you. They don't even tell you what tribe he was, even though he's in the army and he's fighting for, the army of Israel. They don't tell you what tribe he's from and all that. So, but anyway, yeah, I don't think Yahuwah would have been so harsh to Daud and Bathsheba if Ephron really was of that, lineage that they weren't supposed to marry into. I don't think he would have been as harsh to Daud, like killing his son and all that, if that was the case. Just looking at the whole story there, I think Ephron was a Hittite only geographically. If I was to side with one or the other, I think that's a situation where, because technically you could live in Moab and be called a Moabite. Doesn't mean you're actual ethnic Moabite, if you see what I'm saying. So I think that's what's going on there. But the story of Judah, if you look closely, like Yahuwah caused the whole thing with Tamar to happen for a reason. And Tamar was rumored to actually be a Shemite. So technically she actually saved the lineage of Messiah, if anything. So the person Judah definitely did that on his own. He did it on his own accord. And but yeah, the Ephron the Hittite, from what I've seen in scripture, he was actually part of Israel's army and all that. Oh, I forgot about that guy, Ittai. I forgot about him. Ittai the Gittite. I forgot about him. Yeah, he was a Philistine of Gath. Okay. Became third highest commander in Malak Daud's army. So I forgot about him. Yeah, Daud actually had mighty men in his army. So there are instances where it seems like some of these lineages had actual. I kind of wonder though if a Philistine would be allowed to be grafted in like an ethnic Philistine, or if he was just an inhabitant of Gath. because I kind of wonder, like, unless maybe since they're not a direct from Ham and Canaan, maybe there's a loophole there that they're allowed to be grafted in. But doesn't it say, Mom, like they're not even supposed to make covenants with them and all that, all the Canaanite lineage and all that? Mm-hmm. So I guess the Philistines, because they're not directly from the Canaanite lineage, I could see maybe where it's allowable. But I know that they're not supposed to make covenants with them. They're supposed to destroy them all. Yeah, so the Philistines might be a loophole. That might be like a gray area in the law there, because I don't think there's any commandment that says that the Philistines could not be grafted in, but it seems like yeah, I don't know.
Kind of doubtful.
Yeah. Well, it says one of his mighty men was a Philistine. It says in scripture. So there obviously was a Philistine that got grafted in. So that's why I'm saying, Mom, there's no commandment against it. Then it has to be allowable. So there's no commandment against Philistine joining Israel. What I do know, though, is like the Amorites, the Hittites, the Jebusites, all of them were supposed to be utterly destroyed. Now, the Philistines were never mentioned, if I remember correctly. Mm-hmm. Out of those 7 nations that were supposed to be utterly destroyed, the Philistines were never mentioned. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha. You said what I wanted to say. Yeah. So I don't know. There might be a loophole there. That might be why. I'm thinking it might be a righteous allowance there because they were not mentioned to be wiped out.
I think, though, like, regardless of whether Yahuwah gave the allowance for Yehuda to marry off one of his sons to a Canaanite, still the point remains that he did marry a Canaanite, and that eventually that Canaanite had a child with her stepdad, Yehuda, and that lineage traces down to Messiah, so that there is Canaanite lineage in the line of Yehuda. In Messiah's lineage, there's Canaanite genetics.
Yeah. Yeah. That's true. Yeah. Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, though, she was not a daughter. She was a daughter-in-law. She would have not been a Canaanite. She was actually given as a daughter. It seems to allude that she would have been given as a daughter from another family to one of his sons that were Canaanites. Like the sons were Canaanites.
No, she was given to Judah's son.
Yeah.
Judah's son is not a Canaanite. Judah's son is Israel.
Right.
A Canaanite woman married one of Judah's sons.
No. Judah married a Canaanite woman, had sons, 3 sons from the Canaanite woman. In the story, the Canaanites are not the Canaanite's not Tamar. Tamar is a Shemite. She's marrying into a Canaanite family is what's going on. Because you have Judah marrying a Canaanite woman, having 3 sons from that Canaanite woman. Tamar, there's no hint in that story that she's his daughter. She's a daughter-in-law. So
I'm sorry, I'm mixing up.
Yeah. Oh no, it's okay. It's okay. But it's funny to mention this because even the rabbis believed she was a Shemite. The Targum Pseudo Jonathan actually calls her a Shemite and actually says she was a descendant of Shem, and that his son was supposed to marry her. And so that's why I was mentioning that I believe it was Yahuwah's will for that to happen so that he could use Tamar to kind of save the lineage. Because if he didn't, it would have been straight up Canaanite going down into Messiah's seed. But what happened actually was you had all of his Canaanite sons struck and dead. And then you had Judah, a straight up Judean, having a child through a Shemite woman, supposedly. So no Canaanite link actually there. There's it actually was saved by what she did. Yeah, so it's kind of cool when you actually look at that story, what actually was going on. A lot of people miss that, but even the rabbis that's one thing I agree with the rabbis, that they actually caught this provision of Yahuwah to save the seed of Judah. And it's kind of cool, actually, when you look at the whole story. So I know I can understand the confusion, but so basically, he married a Canaanite woman he wasn't supposed to marry is really what happened. And so sometimes Yahuwah will thwart our plans when we're acting wicked, and he'll cause stuff to happen for his purpose. Right. But but there definitely could be Canaanite lineage still some way, somehow, because you have King Solomon doing what he does later on, and he screws up. He has multiple, I forget if it's concubines, wives. He has multiple women that were from that lineage that he has children through, it seems like. Yeah. So King Solomon kind of screws the pooch there with that, and shouldn't have been doing that. And he most of his women were Gentile women, by the way. Most of his women. I don't think he even had one Israelite woman at all. His first wife was an Egyptian woman. Then he had Hittite, Canaanite, all different types of women. I
always wondered why he was building her a separate palace.
I think there was something going on with Pharaoh's daughter why Solomon couldn't have her. I think, if I was to guess, she never really converted. If I was to guess. If I was to put my little conspiracy theory hat on.
Which it never comes off, by the way.
She was put in her own palace because she probably was sacrificing to pagan gods. Okay, and then he didn't want to divorce her, but at the same time, he was trying to, have it both ways, serving Yahuwah and having these loopholes with having, Gentile women. And because if you actually look at it, his downfall actually starts with the Egyptian woman. It actually starts there, and it just gets worse and worse and worse. The more women he adds, the more Gentile wives or concubines he adds, it gets worse and worse and worse. So that, that's actually a good lesson for us guys. Don't be unequally yoked. That's what's going to happen. They're going to turn your heart away from Yahuwah, which eventually did. He started worshiping Ashtoreth at some point, Semiramis. So King Solomon screwed up really badly. But yeah, I definitely agree with Brother Yahusha. Regardless, at some point you're going to have these nations intermingling, whether by intention or by stupid, men like Solomon screwing around, doing stupid stuff like that. But I think Ephron the Hittite, there hasn't been a general consensus. There hasn't been a general consensus whether he really was a Hittite from the Hittite bloodline or geographically. I don't think there's really a consensus where.
I said Uriah.
Yeah, Uriah.
I don't know how he became Ephron.
My bad. I don't know why I'm thinking Ephron.
Yeah, Uriah the Hittite.
Uriah the Hittite, I meant to say. So the reason I believe it's a geographical connotation with the Hittite thing is mainly because he was in Dawood's army.
Yeah.
And it seems like he was an Israelite man. Like from what the story kind of alludes to in that whole story, he was like an Israelite man, possibly living in a Hittite city, and why he was called the Hittite. And because to me it'd be a little weird, like it'd be out of nowhere. Again, David has had Gentile type of people grafted in, like the Philistine. I forgot about him, but from what it looks like Uriah might have been of Israel. And so you have that it definitely was all on Dawood and stuff like that as far as the sin goes. It was on him and Bathsheba and all that. But yeah, it's kind of hard to tell whether ethnically he was a Hittite or not, whether Uriah was a Hittite. It's very hard to tell. But just wanted to see here.
Interesting that both her and David were of the Southern House, though.
Yeah.
She was Benjamin and he was Judah.
Yeah, I think they were trying to do that on purpose. They were trying to keep the Southern House together. They usually, I'm just looking at something real quick. I wanted to look at
I wonder why Bathsheba that he chose the lineage to come through. There were many other wives that they dude had. Like they just wondered why Bathsheba.
I think they were much along in age at that point. He was about 50 when all of this was going on.
Yeah, I think it could have been purposed by Yahuwah because King Solomon was her son, and I wonder if Yahuwah on purpose intentioned it to go that way through her seed because or that it would go through her lineage because King Solomon, if you look at his early days, he was like a type of Yahusha. He rode a donkey, he did this, did that, and really Israel's heyday was when he was king. It was kind of like he had like a foreshadowing of what the millennium would look like in his heyday. And it's almost like Yahuwah originally purposed Solomon to be a type of Yahusha. That's why Yahusha kind of compared himself to Solomon in certain areas. Like he would say, one greater than Solomon is here, referring to himself.
They mentioned him a few times.
So I kind of wondered if that was Yahusha's original intention was for Solomon to be like Joseph and the rest of them, how they would point to him and all that. That could have been one of the reasons. That's just what I was thinking off of the top of my head. Just the fact, that if you look, if even Solomon's temple, it's like all gold. Gold is like the color of the kingdom. Gold is what heaven's going to be like when it comes down. It's going to be a golden city. It's just, seems like that his purpose that Yahuwah originally purposed for him was to be a type of the Messiah that was to come. Unfortunately, King Solomon.
So there's a type. While I definitely see the type of Messiah, also things that make it seem like he portrayed a type of anti-Messiah as well.
Yeah.
You have Sheba, the Queen of Sheba, giving him 666 talents of gold.
Yeah, and then not just that, but you have, even with King Solomon's, like, I would say King Solomon represented Yahusha early in his life when he was doing what Yahuwah wanted him to do. But then later on in his life, I would say even starting with the whole Queen Sheba thing, he started getting prideful and started getting all about his riches and this and that and having so many women. I think there was definitely a change in his character once he started getting all these riches and stuff like that. He didn't really stay humble as far as how he was as a child when he first prayed to Yahuwah. I would agree. There was kind of like a lot of our lives are told in like sometimes our lives we live are like told in two separate stories.
That's right.
And and Solomon's life was told in early on in his life. That was one story, and then later on in his life, he just completely did the exact opposite. Definitely, I think there's definitely something behind Solomon. I think also when he started worshiping, once you get him worshiping Ashtoreth and giving sacrifices to Ashtoreth, that was it at that point. That was it. And there's all types of legends about him we don't know are true or not. There's books like the Seal of Solomon and all this crazy stuff. Who knows if it's true or not? But supposedly he got into witchcraft and started sealing up the 72 principalities in a ring.
The Rastafarian people, I guess that wouldn't be the ethnic term, but just their religion. But at least the people in the islands that are Rastafarian, they believe that they are descended from. I don't believe this story. I believe that they were Judah that were scattered down there to the transatlantic, but they believe that they are from Solomon and Sheba. That Sheba and Solomon had a relationship, which I don't believe that's where they're from, but that legend in and of itself, I don't think it's far-fetched. Then again, at the same time, it seems that I guess it could be far-fetched just because of the fact that when the Queen of Sheba came down there, I think that Solomon was still righteous at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. You're talking about the legend of that the Ethiopians that come from Sheba could extend from Solomon. Yeah, that's hard to tell, man. That is hard to tell whether that story is true or not. I know the Ethiopian Toronto Church is like the one that wants to like hold on to that legend. You know, the people that made the Ethiopian Bible. I don't know, man. That's a little. I think it's a little far-fetched just on their side of the story. I could see maybe him having descendants in general through her, but as far as, you know, them having, I mean, there's other components to the story that doesn't make sense to me. Supposedly they claim to have the Ark of the Covenant and this and that, and it's like, I could see some elements to that as truth with the whole Solomon's lineage going through Ethiopia. I could kind of see that, but it's.
I don't think he ever had a relationship with her. She seemed like she went down there for a righteous purpose. He seemed like he was still righteous at the time. I don't think he was whoring around at that time.
Yeah. I mean, it seems to be more of a Jewish tradition than anything from what I've seen the sources of that story. Like a lot of the Solomon movies out there will try to portray that. You know, it seems to be a very like Judaism influenced tradition, and I'm not trusting that.
What's interesting is there are islands called the Solomon Islands, and they claim that there's still some of his gold over there.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah, that gets into a whole nother conspiracy theory because there's like certain believers out there that are Filipino that think that his gold is in the Philippines and all that.
Gold of Ophir?
Yeah, the gold of Ophir and all that. And, you know, that gets into a whole nother rabbit hole. That gets into a whole nother thing.
Scripture does say that that's where the gold came from.
Oh, okay. I just don't remember the term Philippines being there when it's talking about the gold of Ophir.
The Indian Ocean. I'm not sure exactly where that island is.
The Indian Ocean, okay.
I'm gonna look it up. I'm gonna find out. They're over there somewhere.
Anyway, so what did we do? We did Numbers 31. We're at I think we're at 32 now, I believe. So we're down to like the last chapter, I think, for today. I'm trying to see who hasn't read. We had Ronnie read. My mom read. I read. Okay. Let's see. I want to pick someone who usually doesn't get a chance to read. The heck was that? Stupid phone making noises. Let's see who usually. You know what? I don't think. Sister Josie, would you like to finish us off at chapter 32?
Yes, I will. You said chapter 32, correct?
Yeah.
Okay, hold on 1 second. Let me pull that up. 32. Okay. Debar. Numbers 32. This is from TS 2009, the scriptures. And the children of Reuben and the children of Gad had much livestock, a large number. And they saw the land of Yazir and the land of Gilad, and saw that the place was a place for livestock. So the children of Gad and the children of Reuben came and spoke to Moshe and to Eleazar, I can't even say that, Eleazar, the priest, and to the leaders of the congregation, saying, Araroth and Dibon and Yazer and Nimrah and Hezbon and El Aleh and Sebam and Nebo and beyond, the land which Yahuwah had stricken before the congregation of Israel is a land for livestock, and your servants have livestock. That didn't make sense to me. I don't know why. And they said, if we have found favor in your eyes, let this land be given to your servants as a possession, and do not let us pass over the Yarden. And Moshe said to the children of God and to the children of Reuben, are your brothers to go into the battle while you yourselves sit here? Now, why do you discourage the heart of the children of Israel from passing over into the land which Yahuwah has given them? Thus your fathers did when I sent them away from Kadesh Barnea to see the land. For when they went up to the Wadi Eshkol and saw the land, they discouraged the heart of the children of Israel, so that they did not go into the land which Yahuwah had given them. Then the displeasure of Yahuwah burned on that day, and he swore an oath, saying, not one of the men who came up from Mitzrayim, from 20 years old and above, is to see the land of which I swore to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Jacob, because they did not follow me completely, except Caleb, son of Yefuneh, the Kizanite, and Yehoshua, son of Nun, for they have followed Yahuwah completely. So the displeasure of Yahuwah burned against Israel, and he made them wander in the wilderness for 40 years, until all the generation that had done evil in the eyes of Yahuwah was destroyed. And see, you have risen in your father's place, an increase of men, sinners, to add still more the burning displeasure of Yahuwah against Israel. For if you turn away from following him, he shall once again leave them in the wilderness, and you shall destroy all these people. Then they came near to him and said, let us build sheep enclosures here for our livestock, and cities for our little ones. But let us ourselves be armed, hastening before the children of Israel until we have brought them to their place. And our little ones shall dwell in the walled cities because of the inhabitants of the land. We shall not return to our homes until every one of the children of Israel has received his inheritance. For we shall not inherit with them on the other side of the Jordan and beyond, because our inheritance has fallen to us on this eastern side of the Jordan. And Moshe said to them, if you make this promise, if you arm yourselves before Yahuwah for battle, and all your armed ones pass over the Jordan before Yahuwah, until he has driven out his enemies from before him, and the land has been subdued before Yahuwah, then afterward you shall return and be guiltless before Yahuwah and before Israel, and this land shall be your possession before Yahuwah. But if you do not do so, then see, you shall sin against Yahuwah, and know your sin is going to find you out. Build cities for your little ones and enclosures for your sheep, and do what you have promised. And the children of Gad and the children of Reuben spoke to Moshe, saying, your servants are going to do as my master commands. Our little ones, our wives, our flocks, and all our livestock are going to be there in the cities of Galaad. But your servants are passing over every armed one of the army before Yahuwah to battle, as my master says. And Moshe gave command concerning them to Eleazar the priest, to Yehoshua son of Nun, and to the heads of the fathers of the tribes of the children of Israel. And Moshe said to them, if the children of Gad and the children of Reuben pass over the Jordan with you, every man armed for battle before Yahuwah, and the land has been subdued before you, then you shall give them the land of Galaad as a possession. But if they do not pass over armed with you, they shall have possessions among you in the land of Canaan. Then the children of Gad and the children of Reuben answered, saying, as Yahuwah has said to your servants, so we do. We ourselves are passing over armed before Yahuwah into the land of Canaan, but the possession of our inheritance remains with us beyond the Jordan. So Moshe gave to the children of Gad, to the children of Reuben, and to help the tribe of Menashe, son of Joseph, the reign of Shihon, sovereign of the Amorites, and the reign of Og, sovereign of Bashan, the land with its cities within the borders, the cities of the land round about. And the children of Gad built Dibon and Ataroth and Aroer, and Ataroth, Shaphan and Yezer and Yobehag, and Beth Nimrah and Beth Haran, walled cities and enclosures for sheep. And the children of Reuben built Heshbon and El Eleh and Kirath-Thaim, Nebo and Baal Meon, the names being changed, and Shibma, and they gave other names to the cities which they built. And the sons of Machir, son of Menashe, went to Galaad and took it and disposed the Amorites who were in it. So Moshe gave Galaad to Machir, son of Menashe, and he dwelt in it. And Yair, son of Menashe, went and took its small towns and called them Awath Yair, and Nobah went and took Quinath and its villages, and he called it Nobah after his own name. Praise Yahuwah. That's a lot of names I probably mispronounced.
Interesting. The verse 35, there's a city that's missing or added. Septuagint has Safar and Jazer, and then the Masoretic has the Yagbaha, an extra. Oh wait, it has two extra cities actually. It has Atroth and Yagbaha, whereas I think Safar, Jazer, yeah, Atroth and Jagbaha has two extra cities in the Masoretic. I wonder why they did that. I wonder if they were trying to gain extra cities that didn't belong to them in the Masoretic.
Yeah, what's interesting to me is verse 12 says that Caleb, son of Yefuneh, who was set apart, and Yahusha, son of Nun, for they closely followed after Yahuwah. And I know some might be saying, what does it mean to follow closely after him? What I like about the Targum on Onkelos, they paraphrase that as they walked wholly after the fear, or wholly after the fear of Yahuwah. So it's very interesting there. Trying to see if anything else here. Arm yourselves.
To add to your to that verse, just on verse 12, you have people in this walk that will claim that that natural lineage has to come through the father, that it can't come through the mother, that you have to be grafted in through the father, or it has to be like a certain amount of lineage down being grafted in the father. Just not you have Caleb just being grafted in, and his father was not Israelite at all. So I think that's interesting. And it has nothing to do with like he was grafted in because his even if he was grafted, even if he wanted to make the claim that he was grafted in because his parents came into Yashral, he would have to be his father would have to be never mind, that's not getting the point I was trying to make.
No, I got the point you were trying to make. Really, it doesn't matter either way. Now, just to explain for the people listening in and viewing in, you both are man-made traditions that are not scriptural, that your lineage has to come through your mother, it has to come through the father. Both are not scriptural. They're man-made traditions. One's a rabbinical tradition. The other is just, usually certain Israelite camps claim this, and there's no real proof to that it has to be from the father or has to be from the mother. There's no proof to that. There's vice versa, both cases genetically in scripture where they have ethnicity from both parents. And so that's a big misconception in this walk. A lot of camps hold on to the whole, oh, you're what you are is from your dad. There's no scripture that says that. I truly believe, and I'm on the side of your ethnicity is from both parents. So that's why a lot of us are mixed. We don't just have one ethnicity. A lot of us have different ethnicities through both sides of the family, through your mother's side, your dad's side. Timothy is a perfect example of that in the Brit Hadashah. And there's other examples where it shows that it's not one or the other for him. It's not like it has to be from the father. He is what his father is, or he is what his mother is. He's mixed. He's part Greek and part Hebrew ethnically. So, and you see that even in the Tanakh. I'm trying to remember. I think it mentions a half Egyptian, half Abri boy cursed the name of Yahuwah, right? So it's not saying that he's only Egyptian or he's only Hebrew. Okay, it's saying that he had I forget how it was phrased. It's like he had an Egyptian father. That's what it said. But it called him among Israel. So again, that's why I say, like, you can't, like, we got to be careful what type of traditions we're learning, because if it's not in scripture, it's just tradition.
Yeah, well, Ishmael was half Egyptian and half Hebrew.
Yep. Good example. Yep. It never said he was just Egyptian. So, I mean, So that whole tradition, like I know from your ethnicities from the mother, that is definitely a rabbinical tradition. That is straight up from Judaism. They say you have to count your ethnicity from your mother. It's not true. It's not true at all. I mean, genetics, you just basic scientific genetics. Your genetics are from both parents. So that's just basic genetics there. So I don't know. There's all these weird man-made traditions and stuff like that. But yeah, I agree with Brother Yahusha. It's really both parents. It's so if, for example, if I had a parent who's a Greek and a parent that's Italian, I'm Greek and Italian. I'm not just Greek or not just Italian. So but anyway, just thought I would bring that up and piggyback off of what Brother Yahusha was saying. It doesn't matter which side you're grafted in from. That's as far as Yahuwah is concerned, spiritually, you're grafted in through him. You're not grafted in through a mortal parent. You're grafted in through him when you believe in Messiah. So it has nothing to do with your parents.
So, brother, what about Solomon? Was Solomon like Bathsheba and David?
Yeah. So he was like fully Southern House ethnicity. He was part Benjamite, part Judean. So he had, and at some point, Benjamin becomes part of the Southern House. So he's actually 100% Southern Kingdom, his ethnicity. So but he's technically, to be technical in genetic terms, he would have been half Benjamite, half Judean, or half Yahudim. So yeah, and I think Shaul was probably full Benjamite. I forget, the Apostle Shaul. Yeah. I forget if he would have had any mixture there, but it seems like he's full on Benjamite for the most part.
Daniel too.
Daniel's from Benjamin?
Daniel's from Benjamin.
I always thought he was from the tribe of Judah, really.
No, he's Benjamin.
Interesting. All the guys with the mouths are from Benjamin. I'm telling you, man, that's a tough tribe. That's all I'm gonna say. They're not pansies. They're
prophecy that said that Benjamin would be as a ravening wolf.
What was that, brother? I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you because of the background.
Isn't there the prophecy that Benjamin would be as a ravenous wolf or as a wolf?
Yeah, wolf.
Yeah. So that means they have a very rough type of personality and exterior. They're definitely not going to hold their tongue. Yeah. I think.
They're also tall.
Yeah, they're Daniel. I mean, Daniel was humble, but man, if he had something to say, he said it.
Mm-hmm. He had tact. He knew how to say things.
Yeah. And I forget. I think Judah was mainly about just being very strong and bold, like who shall rouse him up. So the tribe of Judah was like very bold, strong. I forget what Gad was and all them. I gotta go back to that Genesis 48 chapter when he talks about all of them. But yeah, definitely. But yeah, I did want to bring that up about the whole genetics thing because that's like a whole big rabbit trail in this movement, and all that. But yeah. Oh, and that's actually a perfect example of what I was talking about earlier. You can be called something geographically without ethnically being that ethnicity. Wasn't Paul called like a Tarsinian or something like that? Or
he
a Roman?
Was Tarsus, so he may have been, yeah.
Yeah, so
he was a Roman citizen.
Yeah. So technically, Paul, even though he's a Benjamite by blood, geographically, he would be called a Roman. So that's kind of what I was bringing up before. But anyway, so other than that, I didn't see too much. I kept trying to look at the Targums to see if Yahusha was being mentioned at any point with the word of Yahuwah, but I didn't see anything in these chapters, funny enough. So this is the one time I didn't see anything like that. I mean, I'll give another glance here just to see. Actually, I did see in 31 verse 16 earlier that Yahusha is mentioned in the Septuagint, but it seems like it's worded differently in every other version. So Numbers 31:16, I think, was the one time. Let me see here. So I'm going to go to Numbers 32. I just want to see if there was any time. I was kind of looking ahead. Yahuwah willing, next week, I think we're going to see Yahusha being mentioned right away in 33. Yeah, okay. Just glancing here. Yeah. So this is the one time you don't see the word of Yahuwah mentioned in this chapter. Okay. Just double checking here. Okay. Yeah. So next week we're going to see him mentioned a lot. Just not trying to be a spoiler here, but 33, Numbers 33, the word of Yahuwah, the person, the word of Yahuwah is mentioned a lot. So please stay tuned for that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the study today. All right. Let me actually just see here. I see a hand up. Go ahead, Brother Yahusha, if that's not an old hand.
Old hand, sorry.
Oh, it's okay. So all of our viewers and listeners, thank you for tuning in and sticking with us for today. I just want to thank again all the new subscribers for subscribing to the YouTube page. Thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it. Yahuwah is doing big things here with this YouTube page. Only a couple years in, and we're about 60-70% more subscribers than what we started with. So I just want to thank you guys for that. Thank you for being loyal followers of the YouTube page here. Please stay tuned. And please, if you're new and you like what we put out today, you seem to like our studies, please like, share, and subscribe. It only takes a second, guys. Please click on the notification bell so you can be notified every time we have a study. And again, for those of you out there that are having a hard time finding these live streams, like I always say, click on the live tab. When you're on our YouTube page, you're going to have to click on the live tab to see the live streams. The regular video section only has uploads. That's like if I upload it from my computer. So all of our live streams are under the live tab. So just want to help you guys out with that if you're trying to find a specific study. Other than that, for all of our mishpach out there, if we have brothers and sisters out there looking for fellowship, please feel free to reach out to one of us. Okay. And let's see, before we end here, I think Brother Yahusha had something else he wanted to mention. Go ahead, bro.
No, that's an old hand. I'm sorry, I haven't taken it down.
Oh, okay. No, it was weird. It was like I was trying to do it for you and then it went back up. I don't know. Something's going on here. All right. Shalom, brothers and sisters out there. Shabbat shalom. Have a great rest of your day. See you next time, Yahuwah willing. All right.